You ever find a book that's not really a book, but more like a time capsule? Something that just cracks open a door to a world so vibrant, so spiritually alive, that you can almost feel its pulse, even centuries later? Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today. The book we're talking about is called Sufis of Andalusia, and it's a collection of stories about saints and mystics from 12th century Islamic Spain. And I mean, this is not your typical history book. It's not some dry list of names and dates. It's a window into a golden age of spirituality, a world just humming with miracles, profound wisdom, and characters you'll never forget. Which, of course, brings up a huge question. Who could possibly be qualified to write something like this? Who had the insight, the access to capture these incredible lives before they just vanished? Well, to answer that, you have to understand the author himself.
All right, so let's set the scene here. We're in Andalusia, this amazing cultural melting pot during a really special moment in Islamic history.
There's this idea from a scholar named Frithjof Schuon called the second youth of Islam. The concept is that a few centuries after a religion starts, the spiritual and cultural ground is so fertile that you get this incredible, profound flowering of inner or esoteric understanding. This book, it's like a direct report from the very heart of that bloom. It captures a moment of just intense spiritual life.
So you can't really get this book without getting the guy who wrote it, Muhyiddin Ibn Arabi. He was known to many, and for good reason, as the greatest sheikh. And his life was basically the journey that prepared him to be the chronicler of this entire world. His path starts out pretty normal, you know? He gets a traditional education in Seville, even works as a government secretary. But then his inner life just takes this dramatic turn. In Fez, he correctly predicts a huge military victory just by calculating the numerical value of a few words in the Quran. Then, in Mecca, his spiritual journey just explodes in this powerful vision. Eventually, he settles in Damascus, and his life's work just pours out of him.
And look, we're not just talking about intellectual ideas here. In Fez, he had this vision that totally changed how he saw reality. He lost all sense of front and back, describing his vision as spherical in its scope. Can you even imagine that? Seeing in every direction at once? That's the kind of consciousness this man was working with.
But the real turning point, that came in Mecca, in a powerful dream. He sees the Kaaba, the sacred heart of Islam, being built. But he notices 2 bricks are missing. Then, in the dream, he sees himself being fitted into that empty space, completing the whole thing. He woke up knowing his destiny. He was to the saints what the Prophet Muhammad was to the prophets. He was the final seal, completing the line.
So with this incredible new perspective, he looks at the world around him, at these remarkable people. Now let's dive into the heart of the book itself, which is really this amazing gallery of unforgettable saints.
So let's meet one of these figures, a man named Abu Ja'far al-Uryani. And get this, he was an illiterate countryman, no formal schooling, couldn't read a word. But his spiritual station, absolutely immense. He was living proof that in this world, a PhD wasn't a requirement for profound wisdom. And the stories about his spiritual power are just wow. So according to the book, the people of this one town mock him and kick him out. And in response, a jinn, a supernatural being, just moves into the house of the town's leader. And from there, the jinn starts announcing out loud all the secret sins and hidden vices of everybody in town. I mean, total chaos. When they just couldn't take it anymore, they realized their mistake and went begging al-Uryani to come back and call off the jinn. What a story, right? And the book is just packed with stories like this, and they're often told from really surprising viewpoints. This next one is great because of who tells it, one of the criminals himself. So picture this. A group of thieves breaks into the house of a holy man who's just lost in his prayers. They gather up all his stuff, but when they go to leave, there's no door, just a solid wall. Confused, they put the stuff back and poof, the door reappears. They try this a few times, and every single time they pick up the stolen goods, the exit vanishes. Finally, the light bulb goes on. They return everything for good and leave, totally repentant. And Ibn Arabi makes a point to say, it was one of the thieves who told me this story. That just makes it so much more powerful.
Now, it's really important to know, this wasn't just a world of men. The book features several incredibly powerful women saints, including a woman known as Shams, which means sun, who is called the mother of the poor.
Ibn Arabi was just in awe of her. He literally said he'd never met anyone with her degree of control over their own soul. He said her spiritual state was this rare mix of intense fear of God, but also a deep sense of God's complete pleasure in her. And get this, she had this crazy intuition. He tells a story about her yelling at the top of her lungs to a friend who was over a league away, telling him he forgot his kerchief. An hour later, the friend shows up and confirms the whole thing. Incredible.
So, okay, these stories are amazing, but they're just a taste, really. What's the big picture here? What's Ibn Arabi's lasting contribution? This is where we see why his legacy is considered an ocean of truths.
And that phrase, an ocean of divine truths, that wasn't just some nice compliment. It came from another one of the era's greatest spiritual masters, Shihab al-Din al-Suhrawardi. The story goes that the two men met, sat together in total silence for an hour, and then just got up and left. When Suhrawardi was asked what he thought of Ibn Arabi, that was his answer. It just shows you the level of respect he commanded.
You can really think of him as this great bridge. On one side, he took all the vast oral traditions and teachings of Western Sufism in Andalusia and wrote them down. Then, through his travels and his students, he carried that knowledge to the East, where it massively influenced the great Persian Sufis, including the circle around the famous poet Rumi. He literally connected two worlds.
But it's just mind-boggling how much he wrote. I mean, how did one person do all this? The answer? Well, it lies in his just insane creative flow. So I want you to just think about this number, 3.
3, as in 3 notebooks a day. That was his reported pace while writing his magnum opus, The Meccan Revelations. He explained that he never actually had a plan when he was writing. Instead, these flashes of divine inspiration would come over him so strongly that the only way to relieve the pressure was to get it all down on paper. For him, writing wasn't composing, it was pure transmission.
Which just leaves you thinking, doesn't it? His work saved this entire spiritual universe from being forgotten. It's a reminder that history is filled with these lost worlds of human wisdom. And it really makes you wonder, what other truths, what other incredible oceans are still out there, just sitting in ancient texts, waiting for us to rediscover them?